Hey everyone, Madison here. We have been getting some requests for a video on how to upload LiDAR or a raster dataset to ArcGIS Online for field maps using a map tile package. This is how you'll be able to upload LiDAR with the hillshade symbology, which I think a lot of us prefer because it kind of allows you to see some of those differences in elevations a little bit better than the stretch symbology. So we'll get right into that. Here on my screen, I'm working on a series of field maps for an upcoming NRCS wetland delineation in North Carolina, and I'm just filming my process as I go through and create one of these field maps. So this is a field map I have already published, so if you don't already know how to create a field map, please see Fraser's previously uploaded video on how to do so. But I've already done that, so this is a second step in the process that you would likely complete after you've already published your field map. But once you get a little bit more comfortable with this process, I find it's pretty easy to do the map tile package and create the field map simultaneously. So, like I said, I've already published this field map, but before you do publish your field map, the first thing you're going to want to do is remove this raster from your drawing order. You don't want to publish your field map with this on here because it's not going to upload with the symbology that you change it to. So I'm going to copy it to my clipboard and then just go ahead and remove. Now, I have already created this separate map up here that is associated with the field map that I just published. And I've just called it Birdie T6871_LiDAR, so I know that this is the LiDAR that will be associated with this field map. Whenever you're working in a project that has many field maps like this one does, naming is really important just so things don't get confused. But this is just a blank map with the imagery base map. However, once you create this blank map with nothing on it, we're also going to remove the base map imagery. So before you paste your LiDAR, you should just have a blank white map with nothing on it and nothing in the drawing order. And now I'm just going to paste that raster that I had copied to my clipboard. So this is the LiDAR that we're going to be using. First, you'll want to change your symbology. Like I said, this is a tutorial on how to upload the LiDAR using the shaded relief. This is my preferred symbology when doing fieldwork because it really allows you to see some of those topographic features that you may not be able to otherwise. This one I think is pretty good as it is, but you can increase the Z-scale factor here to get even more detail. I'll just go ahead and leave that the way that it is. And then I'm going to change the color scheme because I prefer this colorway, spectrum by wavelength full bright, where the dark blue areas are the lowest elevation and the red areas are the highest elevation. But if you prefer a different color scheme, feel free to use whatever you want. So now that we have this raster prepped and ready, I'm going to go into my analysis tools, and this is the tool that we're going to be using, Create Map Tile Package. Mine is in the favorites because I use it quite frequently, but you can just as easily search for it here and select. The first thing that you want to do is choose your input map. Like I said, this project has many field maps, so I think typically you wouldn't see this many options on here, but if you're working in a similar project, it's definitely very important to make sure you choose the right one. And this is the map that I'm working on right here. For the output file, it will auto-populate to your GIS files or whatever folder you have this project attached to. I like to keep the name identical to the name of my input map, just so I know exactly what file it is, and it's not confusing when you're going between ArcPro and the folder sharing. So once I put in that name, you can see that my output destination is GIS files, and there's the name of the map tile package right there. I always leave PNG 8-bit as my tiling format, and that hasn't given me any problems yet, so I imagine you can probably keep that the same. And then next we're going to play with our minimum and maximum level of detail. In the past year that I've been making field maps, we've had some issues with level of detail, so this is going to be pretty important depending on the size of your raster and how much you're going to be zooming in on your phone. So the minimum level of detail, typically I keep this at around 12, but like I said, it really depends on how big your site is and how much you're going to be zooming out. I've used this 12 level of detail for sites that are 2,000 acres, and it still seems to work pretty well. So I'd recommend starting there. And then the maximum level of detail is going to be where you're going to find is site specific. I have been using the 17 as my maximum level of detail in the past, and that is where we were having problems with the LiDAR disappearing once you zoom in past a certain point. So some of these tracks that we're looking at the NRCS wetlands are only 3 or 5 acres. And so you're going to be zooming in really far in order to see those. And if that's the case, I've been going with this maximum level detail of 20, and that's been pretty successful thus far. So I'm going to go ahead and select that since I kind of already have background knowledge about the size of my site. One thing to keep in mind here, the greater your maximum level of detail, the more tiles there are going to be in this raster dataset, and it's going to be a larger file that takes up more space on the server. So if you're creating things like this really often and then uploading it to ArcGIS Online, it's going to be really important to keep that in mind and just make sure we are continuing to do data audits and cleaning up and removing field maps and files on Arc Online that are no longer needing to be used. So just in summary, minimum level of detail 12, maximum level of detail 20. This will change depending on the size of your site. You may not need such a high level of detail, and you may even be able to bring the minimum level of detail up as well. In my experience, I'm not able to create a map tile package without filling out these 2 fields, but they don't really matter, so I usually just put in LiDAR here for the summary and tags, and then for the extent, I just click on this icon here, the yellow page, and then select my layer right there, and it just tags the corners of the raster dataset. This is the coordinate system I'm working in. I think typically it'll be in state plane for whatever state plane zone you're in, but these wetland projects require UTM. So, and that is all we need to do for that. And I will just go ahead and run the map tile package. It shouldn't take very long to complete, but you'll just go ahead and wait for that to run. And typically it did not, it says completed with warnings. Typically that wouldn't be the case. It would just give you the green create map tile package completed. Y'all can see here that the warning is pyramids are not present within the raster. I have spoken with Fraser. If you receive this error, not really something to worry about. In this case, I know that the pyramids are not present because my raster is so small that pyramids didn't need to be built. However, if you're getting that error for a different reason, there's another geoprocessing tool that you can use called Build Pyramids. And if you do need them, you can just go ahead and run that tool and then go through the create map tile package again. But for this situation, I'm just going to go ahead and ignore that and not worry about it. So that's all the work that we need to do in ArcPro. And now I'm going to hop over here to Arc Online and add that map tile package to my field map. I prefer to organize my field maps in folders, especially if it's something like this wetland project where you can see there's a lot of field maps going on in here. So I'm going to find my folder, 25202. This is just my project. And the first thing that I'll do is add the map tile package to my content folder here. I've been working out of this frequently over the last couple days, so it auto opened to the folder I need, but typically I imagine you would need to go to the project folders and just find wherever you saved your map tile package to. This is why labeling is important. You can see that I have several and I typically organize them in the folder like this, but I know that this is the one I was just working on, so I'll go ahead and select that. You're going to want to keep it selected, the add LiDAR map tile package and create a hosted layer. If you don't do this, I'm not sure you're going to be able to add it to your field map, so keep it selected on this one. Click next. Sometimes it likes to auto-populate to this Nutter Tech Lab folder, so again, just to keep everything organized, I recommend saving to the folder and just make sure you have the correct one selected and go ahead and click save. And I believe at this stage it's just checking the naming conventions. That's also why it's important to name them specifically, because you can't upload two files with the exact same name. So if you're just naming them LiDAR or something generic, you may run into issues with being able to upload more than one raster if that's something that you're doing. And again, some of these steps in the process just take a couple minutes, so just be patient as it loads. I'm not very good with editing, so I'm not sure I'll be able to cut out some of these sections where nothing's really going on. It's publishing the tiles. I believe it will continue to do this in the background, so you don't necessarily need to sit on this screen and wait for it to finish loading. The only other thing that you need to do here is make sure that this button is selected if you intend to or even suspect that you may need to download this area for an offline map in the event that we don't have good cell service or something whenever we're going out to a site. And then after you do that, just make sure you hit save, and it will let you know down here if it was saved successfully. I have checked this deletion management button in the past, but it just kind of gave me problems later when I needed to go back and edit something, so I would just leave this area alone, and it should continue to publish these tiles in the background. So I'm going to go ahead and leave this screen and go back to my content. And the last thing that we need to do here is open that field map that I published before the start of this video. that the raster is going to go on. I just open the map. You can see all of our fields right here, and we are just going to add a layer. There's several ways you can do this. This is the way that I do it. I browse the layers in my content, and this was the thing that I added most recently, so it's here at the top. But if you don't see it, you can scroll through things you've added or search for it right here. I know this is the one I'm going to be using, so I'll go ahead and add it. And there is our really nice hillshade symbology. And this is one of the most important steps. Before you leave this screen, just make sure you reorder your LiDAR to the bottom. That way it's in the background and you're able to see your AOI and other clipped layers if you have them. And you can just check the visibility by turning off some of that other stuff that's in there. And the very last step is just to save your field map. Make sure it saves. And now you should be able to have this really nice detailed hillshade symbology LiDAR on your field map. Of course, always check them on your phone before you leave for the field, but at this point, everything should be ready to go. This is pretty much the extent of my knowledge about these processes, so if you have questions about anything that I talked about in this video, feel free to ask. But if you have more specific questions, I definitely recommend talking to Fraser about that, since he's kind of our GIS expert around here. But thanks so much for requesting this video. And yeah, maybe we'll have some more of these in the future. Happy fieldwork!